Well, today we're going to start a 16-part series, and it's going to be on the steadfast love of God in the book of Psalms. You will hear the word Hesed mentioned quite a bit. And as we just think about this, just want to give you a little bit of background of where some of this started from. So Hesed is a Hebrew word, and it's translated sometimes by various translations as loving kindness. The English Standard Version actually translates it steadfast love, and it's pretty consistent throughout. So several years ago, as I was reading through the book of Psalms, I just kept noticing steadfast love mentioned over and over again. And it's referring to God's covenant love. We'll get into more of that next week and in the weeks to come. But I began to just do a simple research, just not on just steadfast love, but the actual Hebrew word hesed. And what I began to find out is that half of the times that it was used in the Old Testament, it was found in the book of Psalms. 52 of the 150 Psalms contain this word in it. So I began to think to myself, why is this? What importance is God trying to tell us about his covenant love in the book of Psalms? And so begin to do that, and that's where this study kind of bore out. We're going to go about 15, 16 weeks to look at this. And one of the things for us as we just kind of set this as an introduction is just to kind of remember what is the purpose of Psalms. Psalms are a collection of songs and prayers that help form the worship of God's people. And that's evident both in the gathered setting, but also as individuals in their personal and private devotion as well. So this collection is really a treasure chest of God's character, many times pointing toward and revealing Christ. But Psalms are much more than just a theology book, though that's certainly not a bad thing. They show God's people in real life, praising God, thanking God, confessing sin, pouring out their troubles and their heartaches, struggling with life to God. And that's why so many of us relate with the Psalms so much, because it speaks to our present life as pilgrims and aliens and those that are waiting for a heavenly, eternal kingdom. But when we look at Psalms, we combine this rich theology of who God is with the experience of his people living out their faith. It just helps us to reflect more and more about God's character in our life, and even with our own sin and our own weaknesses. Because the reality is, as God's people, we are going to struggle not only with external hardships, trials, temptations, but internally with the flesh as well. So, we struggle with the world, the flesh, and the devil, trying to be conformed to the image of Christ and to give God glory in everything. So this first post just kind of be an introduction. We're going to deal more with Hesed, or steadfast love of God's covenant love, next week. So you might be wondering, and we'll just have a little bit of patience. We will get to that next week. So this is just introduction, but help us lay the foundation for next week. I want us to just listen to some passages where Hesed is used outside of Psalms, because we're going to spend the next several lessons looking at it within Psalms. Outside of Psalms, the word Hesed is used about 120 different times. And I'm just going to read 7 passages. The word Hesed, that's going to be our focal point here, is you want to listen to the word steadfast love. And so just kind of listen to it. You can write these down, go back and look at them later. But Exodus chapter 34, verses 6 through 7 says, "The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children and the children's children to the 3rd and 4th generation." Lamentations 3, verses 22 through 23 says, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 15 and 16, "But my steadfast love will not depart from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before you. And your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me. Your throne shall be established forever. Ruth, chapter 2, verse 20. And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, may he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness, and that's the word Hesed, has not forsaken the living or the dead. Naomi also said to her, the man is a close relative of ours, one of our redeemers. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 10. For the mountains may depart, and the hills be removed, but my steadfast love, but my steadfast love shall not depart from you, and my covenant of peace shall not be removed, says the Lord who has compassion on you. Again in Isaiah chapter 63 and verse 7, I will recount the steadfast love of the Lord, the praises of the Lord according to all that the Lord has granted us, and the great goodness to the house of Israel that he has granted them according to his compassion, according to the abundance of his steadfast love. Hosea chapter 6, verse 6, our last one. For I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. So that gives us a background of what we're going to be looking at in Psalms. And over the next several weeks, 15, 16 lessons, we're going to kind of break this down into 4 different sections. Section 1 is understanding God's Hesed. And in this section, we're going to explore the depth of God's love and character through the lens of his steadfast love. We're going to see that his covenant promises are inseparable from who he is. The unchanging nature of God's love towards his people helps to anchor our faith, leading us to rest in him, to trust him more, to be in awe of his person more and more. Section 2, we're going to look at God's Hesed in life's trials. Because that is a big part of in the book of Psalms as well, that God's people, we're not immune to trials. We walk through dark valleys, or as Psalm says, through the valley of the shadow of death. We experience moments of despair, yet even in our suffering, despair is never without hope. The loving kindness of God, the steadfast love of God walks alongside the believer, bringing comfort and shelter, even when life storms assail us. Here we're going to learn that God's steadfast love endures forever, even in the midst of hardship. Section 3, living in the light of Hesed. How does God's covenant love shape our daily lives? How does his steadfast love guide our steps? How does it help us with spiritual growth? How does it strengthen our character? Living in light of God's steadfast love informs our choices, leads us to righteousness, shapes all the ways that we navigate the challenges of this life. And then finally, we're going to just kind of look at how do we respond to God's steadfast love. This is going to involve remembering that his faithfulness is true, and that his faithfulness reminds us how we are to live in a community with other believers. God's steadfast love, as I said, is not to be experienced in isolation, but it's to be shared in fellowship. And so we're also going to see that his steadfast love endures through all generations. From one generation to the next, his love remains constant and unchanging. From generation to generation, his steadfast love endures forever. So next time, we're just going to look more deeply as we get into section 1 about the meaning of God's Hesed. But just to encourage you just to begin thinking and meditating on the steadfast love of God. How does that impact your life? How does that make you adore him more? How does that make you desire to know more of his word and to trust in every moment of your life more and more the God who sent his son to die for sinners like you and me? See you next time.